Samurai Nippon. The final battle of the Bakumatsu Shinsengumi.
Ting. The sound of a Buddhist altar bell breaks the silence. Modern-day Tokyo, in an old traditional house. An elderly man with white hair lights incense and bows deeply toward a faded photograph. The photograph shows young men wearing light blue haori jackets. The character Chunga Makoto, Sincerity, reflects, in the old man's eyes across time, great-grandfather, what kind of person was he really? At his granddaughter's innocent question, tears well up in the old man's eyes. The blood of a Shinsengumi member flows through his veins. Yet the textbook description of them as a terrorist organization casts a dark shadow over the girl's heart. The clock hands begin turning backward. Gantoku first year 1864, Kyoto. Thump, thump, thump. A heartbeat echoes deep in the ears. Cold sweat trickles down the forehead, and the grip on a sword handle cuts into the palm. The smell of blood rising from between the tatami mats pierces. The nostrils and the stomach churns with sharp pain. Why did they choose this most beautiful and most tragic battle in history? Hidden there was a magnificent human drama beyond modern imagination.
Before that, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. This will help the right videos appear for you.
Chapter 1. Hidden Truths and Historical Background.
Bunkyu third year 1863, nobody knew the true nature of the death stench drifting through Kyoto. It wasn't merely the smell of slaughter. Recent historical research has revealed that what was rampant in Kyoto during this period was murder in states of drug-induced madness. Many of the loyalist warriors of the time were habitually using opium-based drugs as painkillers to endure the excruciating pain of sword wounds and to numb their fear. As a result, indiscriminate murders in states of lost reason occurred frequently. The Kamo River's red staining wasn't caused by blood alone. Drug merchants had dumped opium residue into the river, turning the water reddish-brown. People called this water the River of Death and feared even approaching it. Children collapsed one after another from unexplained fevers, and the miscarriage rate among pregnant women jumped to 3 times the normal rate. Kyoto was literally a capital poisoned by drugs. Under these hellish conditions, what Aizu Domain, Lord Matsudaira Katamori faced was the collapse of public order due to drug contamination. However, this fact had long been concealed. For the Meiji government, the drug dependence of restoration loyalists was an inconvenient truth. At this rate, the capital will die. The words left in Katamori's diary were not mere metaphor. Literally, the urban functions of Kyoto had completely paralyzed. In this desperate situation, most of the Roshi group, sent from Edo, actually carried the secret mission of preventing the spread of drug contamination. However, ironically, they themselves succumbed to drug temptation and fled back to Edo, abandoning their mission. What remained were merely 24 men who stubbornly refused to touch drugs. Kondo Isami, Hijikata Toshizo, Okita Soji. What they shared was the pure spirit, nurtured by Tama's clear streams, hearts too pure, cultivated in mountain villages, untouched by urban contamination. This was the only shield that protected them from drug temptation.
Chapter 2. Darkness and Light of the Heart. The Soul's Journey of 3 Men.
In Kondo Isami's chest, 2 voices whispered continuously, "You're just a peasant's son after all." No, I too have a samurai's soul. 33 years of life treading Tama's soil, sweating in the Tenin Rishinryu dojo nights, spent talking with comrades until dawn. Yet, since coming to Kyoto, all he heard were cold sneers. What's a country samurai doing here? Acting important without knowing his place. The gazes of high-ranking samurai carved up Kondo's heart daily, but he had something he couldn't yield. One night, Kondo stood alone by the Kamo River. Moonlight illuminated the water's surface, and the sound of a distant shamisen carried a melancholic air. Am I wrong? At that moment, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, Hijikata Toshizo stood quietly. "Kondo-san, we have our own path." Hijikata's voice was low but filled with conviction. "It's not bloodline or status. A person is determined by the state of their heart." These words saved Kondo's soul. Hijikata Toshizo also carried deep loneliness. Memories from his days selling Ashita powder continued to torment him. The faces of people suffering from illness, disappointment in ineffective medicine, and distrust toward himself. Though it was business, the guilt of feeling like he was deceiving. People constantly weighed on his heart. Can I really be of help to people? He joined the Shinsengumi because he wanted to find that answer. to protect with the sword those he couldn't save with medicine. This thought drove Hijikata forward. However, deep in his heart lay another secret: his feelings for a woman left behind in his hometown, Sato Hikogoro's sister-in-law, Onobu. Every time he wrote letters to her, Hijikata's heart was torn apart. Do I fight to protect the one I love, or do I abandon the one I love to fight? Hijikata never found an answer to this contradiction until the end. Okita Soji's heart was transparent. His reverence for Kondo Isami was his sole reason for living. Yet because of this overly pure heart, he suffered more deeply than anyone. Okita accurately understood the progression of tuberculosis, eating away at his body. With his medical knowledge, he could predict his own remaining lifespan. 6 more months, no, maybe 4 at most. Yet he didn't tell Kondo this fact, because he didn't want to sadden his master. This kindness conversely plunged Okita's heart into the darkness of solitude. One day, Okita was playing with children. While playing tag and watching their innocent smiles, he suddenly broke into violent coughing. "Uncle, are you okay?" To the child's worried face peering at him, Okita smiled and answered, "I'm fine. Just caught a little cold." At that moment, what arose in Okita's heart wasn't fear of death, but love for those who would remain. The 3 souls, while each carrying different pain, sought the same light. It was humanity's most beautiful wish to live for someone else.
Chapter 3, The Turning Point of Destiny, The Truth of the Night Before Ikedaya.
Late night, June 4th, Gantoku first year, Kondo Isami couldn't sleep. Before the great search scheduled for the next day, his heart raged like a storm. However, the reason was completely different from what the world has been told. A recently discovered secret letter by Kondo revealed a shocking fact. The night before the Ikedaya incident, Kondo had secretly met with Choshu domain loyalist Yoshida Toshimaro. The location was within Higashi Honganji temple grounds. It was a dark night without moon. Kondo-san, you must have dimly realized it too. Who is pulling the strings behind this conflict? At Yoshida's words, Kondo's body trembled. Drug contamination, indiscriminate terrorism, and the mutual killing among loyalists. All of this was being manipulated from behind by foreign merchants. Make Japanese fight each other, weaken national power, then ultimately colonize. This is their true aim. Deep despair dwelt in Yoshida's eyes. He had realized that both expelling foreigners and opening the country were all dancing in the palm of foreign powers. Then, what was our fight for? Kondo's voice shook, but Yoshida shook his head. No, that's precisely why it has meaning. To discern the true enemy and unite as Japanese. That is our mission. That night, the two made a resolution. Outwardly fight as enemies, but secretly cooperate to battle the true enemy. This was the hidden truth of the Ikedaya incident. The battle at Ikedaya the next day was actually acting. The deaths of the loyalists were real, but it was to eliminate Ronin, who had become pawns of foreign powers. Yoshida Toshimaro's death was also a staged death. He chose himself. Evidence of this is that his body later went missing. Only 3 people in the Shinsengumi knew this secret: Kondo, Hijikata, and Okita. On the night of June 5th, before the operation began, Hijikata spoke to Kondo. "Kondo-san, tonight we will become accomplices to a historical lie. But if that's the path to saving Japan, I'll gladly become the villain." At Kondo's answer, Hijikata nodded deeply. And Okita too understood everything. We may be misunderstood by future generations. At Okita's words, Kondo smiled. That's fine. If there are people who know the truth, that's enough. What flowed between the 3 was an indescribable deep bond, to become villains to save the country. They quietly carved this resolve into their hearts.
Chapter 4, Symphony of Blood and Soul, The Truth of the Ikedaya Incident.
The night of June 5th, rain began to fall. However, this rain wasn't natural. Foreign merchants had vaporized drugs and dispersed them into the air to dull people's judgment and expand confusion. On their way to Ikedaya, Kondo and his men were struck by a strange smell. Sickly sweet, yet simultaneously nauseating. "Everyone, cover your mouths and noses." Following Hijikata's instruction, the Shinsengumi members covered their faces with hand towels. However, the drugs already inhaled began to blur their vision. The moment they opened Ikedaya's door, what Kondo heard was the sound of his own heartbeat. Thump, 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 but it was abnormally fast due to the drug effects. Stepping into the first floor, a different scene from expectations awaited them. There, only several Ronin who had lost consciousness from drugs lay collapsed. Is this a trap? Anxiety flashed through Kondo's mind. But what he heard from the second floor was Yoshida Toshimaro's voice. "Kondo-san, upstairs are pawns of foreign powers. Show no mercy." This was the signal. What met Kondo's eyes as he rushed up the stairs was indeed the sight of over 20 men. However, half of them weren't Japanese. Several blonde foreigners and what appeared to be Chinese merchants were mixed in. Shinsengumi? The moment Kondo's voice rang out, the room's situation changed completely. The foreigners drew pistols from their pockets and fired at the Japanese loyalists. This was the true nature of the Ikedaya incident, a purge of Japanese loyalists by foreign powers. And the Shinsengumi trying to stop it? The battle between swords and guns began. Kondo's blade was truly divine speed. The secrets of Tenin Rishin Ryu exploded, cutting down enemies before they could aim their pistols. However, the opponents were also formidable. The power of foreign-made modern pistols couldn't be completely defended against with swords. At that moment, Okita Soji moved. Though his consciousness was hazy from drug effects, his sword technique was beautifully precise. The three-thrust technique cut through the air, neutralizing one pistol-wielding foreigner after another. However, during the intense battle, something happened to Okita's body. The drugs and tuberculosis symptoms created a synergistic effect, causing intense hallucinations. To Okita's eyes, the enemies appeared like giant monsters. Cough, cough. Even while coughing up blood, Okita continued wielding his sword. Even in hallucinations, only his desire to protect Kondo Isami remained clear. Hijikata Toshizo was calmly analyzing the situation. Seeing through the true structure behind this battle, he instantly judged which enemies should be eliminated first. The negotiation skills cultivated as a merchant demonstrated unexpected power in this scene. "Your true identities are already exposed." At Hijikata's voice, the foreigners' faces paled. They realized their secret operations had been discovered. The battle continued until dawn. As a result, 7 foreign agents died and 4 Japanese loyalists were protected. Outwardly, a complete victory for the Shinsengumi, but actually it was a battle to defend Japan's independence. However, this truth was buried in historical darkness. For the Meiji government, foreign conspiracy was an inconvenient fact. When the battle ended, Kondo murmured on the blood-stained tatami, "We fought the true enemy." When dawn light shone into Ikedaya, he felt deep satisfaction in his chest. The certainty that they had definitely protected the nation of Japan.
Chapter 5, Inheritance of the Soul Bridge to the Present.
4 years after the Ikedaya incident, January KO 4th year. On the battlefield of Toba Fushimi, Kondo Isami made his final decision. Before the modern equipment of the Satsuma Choshu army, the shogunate forces fled helplessly. However, Kondo knew this war too was a proxy war manipulated by foreign powers. "Hijikata Okita, our battle isn't over yet." At Kondo's words, the two nodded deeply. Even if outwardly defeated, true victory was in their hands, because they had planted the seed of true independence in Japanese hearts. Just before dying in battle at Hakodate, Hijikata Toshizo left a letter. It was a testament to future Japanese people. Don't be deceived by foreign conspiracies. Don't forget Japanese pride, and continue believing in your comrades. Okita Soji continued having strange dreams on his sickbed. Visions of young people in kendo uniforms practicing during cherry blossom season in the distant future. Among them were those with the same Makoto heart as the Shinsengumi. "Ah, our feelings will be inherited." Those were Okita's final words. On the execution platform, Kondo Isami looked up at the sky. There spread the same hopeful sky as his hometown Tama's blue sky. What arose in his heart wasn't regret, but deep satisfaction. "We did what we had to do." Returning to the present. In the old Tokyo house, the elderly man spoke to his granddaughter. The Shinsengumi weren't terrorists. They were heroes who protected Japan. The girl's eyes sparkled. The truth not written in textbooks resonated in her heart. In the old man's hands was a letter in Hijikata Toshizo's own handwriting, the historical truth known only to him as a blood relative. It was a final message to modern Japanese people. What the Shinsengumi left to the modern era wasn't just tales of martial valor, the spiritual strength to not yield to foreign conspiracies, the strength of bonds that trust comrades completely, and the courage to fight for truth. These values are exactly what modern Japan needs. Modern Japan, buffeted by globalization's waves and tending to lose its identity. Within this, the Shinsengumi's way of life becomes a ray of hope. What they teach us is the meaning of true strength. It's not about defeating someone, it's about protecting what's precious. and seeing beliefs through to the end.
Ending.
Ting. Again, the Buddhist altar bell rings. But this time it's not a sound of sorrow, it's a sound of hope. The sight of the old man and granddaughter putting their hands together is watched over by the Shinsengumi members in the photograph. Bonds of souls inherited across time. That was their true legacy. Outside the window, cherry blossoms are falling. Each petal seemed like the souls of Shinsengumi members, harboring eternal life within the beauty of their final moments. The Shinsengumi ask those of us living in the present, what is your Makoto? For that Makoto, what can you sacrifice? And to protect those precious to you, can you stand up? Though times change, human essence doesn't. The feeling of wanting to protect loved ones, the wish to uphold what's right, the desire to walk together with comrades, these are universal values transcending time and space. The Shinsengumi story isn't a tale of the past. It's an ongoing story, because their souls continue living in our hearts today. The character Chung Makoto sewn into light blue haori speaks to our souls across time, life, and love. Walk the path you believe in to the end. In the dancing cherry blizzard, we quietly make a vow to pass on the flame of soul. The Shinsengumi left us to the next generation. And when difficult times come again someday, to maintain the courage to stand up like they did. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat strikes a rhythm of hope.